Love is a many splendid things. Love is unconditional. Love is absolute. Love is forgiving. But love is unforgivingly, unconditionally, and absolutely blind. And so our story begins with the White Wolf, Geralt of Rivia, traveling the path as he has for many years, with only Roach, his trusty mare, to keep him company. On the horizon, a murder of crows was dancing in the pale mist. He halted for a moment to watch the black birds continue their ominous dance before spurring the mare off the main road. "We'll go a little out of our ways, Roach," he said. "We'll take a detour from the highway. I don't think the birds are circling there for nothing." The mare obediently walked towards the dense forest that flanked the highway. Hidden behind the lush vegetation, laying parallel with the highway, lay the shallow ravine that stretched a little ways before ending in a quiet glade. Surrounded by a mess of tangled bushes and trees that hang their branches greedily across the clearing, were two corpses sprawled across the ground. The first corpse was in plain sight. A white, blood-stained sheepskin jacket and a matte blue dress contrasted sharply with the sunburned grass that dotted the yellowish dirt. He couldn't see the second corpse, but its location was fairly obvious. Like stone gargoyles, 3 wolves were sitting calmly on their haunches, watching the Witcher as he emerged from the shrubbery. The mare snorted and shook its head, and as if by command, one by one, the wolves padded lazily towards the thick overgrowth, glancing back at the newcomer with cold eyes. The Witcher waited for the wolves to leave before dismounting and walking slowly towards the second body, casting only a fleeting glance on the woman in the matte blue dress. Her throat and face were missing. The second victim was lying face down, a man dressed in a modest doublet. Geralt saw no need to turn the man over. Despite the numerous bite wounds inflicted by various forest dwellers that covered his sides and back, it was obvious to the Witcher that the man died of less natural causes. Dry droplets of blood that spotted the back and shoulders of the man's hay-colored doublet betrayed the real cause of death: a single blow to the back of the neck. The presence of a hefty leather purse hanging from the man's sword belt indicated that mere bandits or horse thieves were not responsible for cutting short the lives of these two. Reaching over, Geralt tore the purse off and item by item threw the contents on the grass. A tinderbox, a piece of chalk, sealing wax, a handful of silver coins, a folding shaving knife, a rabbit's ear, 3 keys, and a talisman with a phallic symbol. 2 letters written on canvas much beyond readability, but the third, written on quality parchment, survived the rains of yesterday. It was a credit note made out by the dwarf bank in Muriel to a merchant called Rule Asper, or Aspen, for a modest sum of coin. Prompted by the contents of the banknote, the Witcher examined the man more closely and, as expected, he found a copper ring painfully constricting the dead man's bloated fingers. Depicted on the ring was a stylized helmet with a visor, 2 crossed swords, and an A rune engraved beneath them. Sign of the Armorer's Guild, no doubt. Leaving the man's rigid body, he went back to the woman in the matte blue dress. As he was turning the body over, something pricked him in the finger. A rose of the most peculiar deep blue color, withered and pressed flat, pinned to the back of the dress. Turning the body completely over and seeing the deep bite marks on the back of the young woman's neck confirmed the Witcher's suspicion. No wolf did this. Backing away from the corpse, he called for Roach and mounted the mare, not taking his eyes off the surrounding thicket. He rode the mare twice in a circle, leaning from the saddle and observing the ground before halting at the edge of the glade. "So, Roach," he said quietly, "the case is reasonably clear. The armor and the woman arrived on horseback from the direction of the forest. They were on their way home from Muriel because nobody carries an uncashed credit note for long. Why they were going this way and not following the highway, I don't know. But they were crossing the glade side by side, and then again, I don't know why, they both dismounted or fell from their horses. The armorer died instantly. The woman ran and then fell and died, and whatever attacked her, which didn't leave any tracks, dragged her along the ground with her throat in its teeth. The horses ran off. This happened 2 or 3 days ago." The mare snorted restlessly, reacting to the tone of his voice. "The thing which killed them," continued Geralt, watching the forest edge, "was neither a werewolf or a leshy. Neither would have left so much for the scavengers. If there were swamps here, I'd say it was a kimimora or a viper, but there aren't any swamps here. Well, Roach, we're taking a roundabout route. We better check why this armorer and woman were riding through the forest and not along the highway. If we pass by ignoring such incidents, we won't ever earn enough for your oats, will we? The mare obediently moved forwards across the glade, carefully sidestepping hollows. Although it's not a werewolf, we won't be taking any risks. The Witcher continued, taking a bunch of dried monk shed from the saddlebags and hanging it by the bit. The mare snorted. Geralt unlaced his tunic a little and pulled out a medallion engraved with a wolf with barred jaws. The medallion, hanging on a silver chain, bobbed up and down and written to the horse's gait, sparkling in the sun's ray like mercury. When the mist finally settled, the sun was already high in the sky. From the top of a small hill, Geralt could see red bricks of an old watchtower baking in the warm sunlight. He spent the hours following his departure from the glade, riding along fading, long-forgotten forest paths that were once used by travelers who wanted to avoid the highway, periodically leaning from his saddle and examining the ground for tracks. Roach, the usually steadfast mare, was, ever since they cleared the glade, acting agitated and unruly, tossing her hair about and snorting at the slightest whisper the forest made. The heat must have been getting to her, thought Geralt to himself. The sun was reflecting off 1,000 oily, fleshy leaves which covered the thick shrubbery that grew over the abandoned path they were traveling. A mile has gone by and the path cleared up. The air was cooler here, yet the mare remained restless, so much that Geralt resorted to magic, casting the sign of Axia with the corresponding incantation before finally dismounting and leading the horse by the bridle. A short while later, after leading the mare down a mild slope, Geralt suddenly stopped. There was a wall in his path. Countless vines have found their way up the wall, crawling from the ground and reaching from tree branches. It was hard to make out where the wall ended and the forest began. The crumbling grey plaster was barely visible below the mess of thorns and stalks, but Geralt could clearly make out red bricks hidden beneath it. The same red bricks he saw earlier today. A drop of sweat rolled down the Witcher's back. He felt a tingle in the back of his neck and pressure in his temples. A strange sensation, yet all too familiar to him. He was being watched. He turned around smoothly and calmly as to not alarm his watcher. Standing in the shade of an elder tree up the slope the hedges climbed down from was a slender girl with raven black hair and a white dress that played with the wind. Her hand was resting on a tree trunk and the semblance of a smile danced upon her lips. "Greetings," exclaimed the Witcher. The mare snorted and stamped her hooves as the Witcher displayed a friendly gesture and took a step forward. The woman turned her pale face away from the Witcher, but her eyes, large and dark, followed the Witcher's every movement. She was no longer smiling. Geralt took another step forward and the girl ran down the slope. Running like a horse in full gallop, the girl darted through the shrubbery, her white dress flying, and disappeared in the depths of the forest. Walking back, his eyes scanning the forest for movement, the Witcher calmed the mare yet again with magic and started leading the horse by the bridle, wading through the thorny bushes as they followed the wall. After some while, he came across a sturdy gate. Spots of rust could be seen on the hinges and the bars that cut vertically across its bent metal frame. Visible behind the door was a courtyard and a fountain, and an old mansion with a red brick watchtower. After a moment of hesitation, Geralt touched the one remaining brass knocker. He immediately jumped back because, squeaking and clattering, the door swung open without warning, dragging heavily across the ground and sending dirt and gravel flying. When it stopped, all was yet again quiet. Pulling the hesitant mare behind him, Geralt entered what used to be a royally decorated courtyard. The gravel paths that cut through it were streaked with grass and weeds, and the turf that surrounded them were overgrown and corrupted with wild bushes and thorny vines. Wood scaffolding was mounted all along the walls. The bright red color of new bricks contrasted with the old cherry-colored bricks that dominated the inner walls. In the middle of the courtyard, surrounded by ruined flower beds, stood a rich fountain, now dry and lifeless, with a white stone dolphin depicted in full flight. The sizable estate ended with a large mansion. Nature has overtaken it, vines have found their way up its walls all the way to the roof, their thorns ripping away at the crumbling, damp-ruined plaster and flaking paint that covered the brown shutters and door. Looks like no one's home. He slid Roach's girdle over a stone post next to the gate and walked towards the overgrown fountain, not taking his eyes from the heavy wooden door of the mansion that for the moment remained shut. Hidden behind the fountain, growing amongst crumples of moss and yellowish grass, was a solitary rose bush. Overgrown and unkempt, the bush itself was unremarkable at best, but it was the color of the roses that made the bush so fascinating. Roses of the most peculiar deep blue color. Geralt gently caressed one of the indigo roses, admiring its rich color and healthy feel. It was at that moment when a loud racket made him jump back up again. Without warning or reason, the windows of the mansion flew open. The heavy wooden shutters slammed against the wall and suddenly came to life as they flapped open and closed, creating a terribly loud noise. The Witcher turned his head just in time to see the main door of the mansion fly open with a mighty thud, and a monster, running on all fours, charging at him in a wild frenzy. The Witcher reached for his sword, the blade hissing against the leather scabbard as he drew it, and tracing a luminous semicircle, he pointed the shiny steel towards the beast. Upon seeing the razor-sharp steel blade, the monster did something Geralt has rarely seen in his long career as a Witcher. Gravel spraying in all directions, the beast ground to a halt, stopping 10 feet from the Witcher and gazing at him with bloodshot eyes. What happens next will shock you! And that has been it for this first episode of Witcher Stories. That's how I'm going to name this series, I think. I don't know. Unfortunately, I had to cut the episode in 2 parts because while I was recording the commentary, I noticed that I exceeded my 10-minute limit, and it is the limit that I've placed upon myself because I want these videos to be relatively short and not take too much time out of a person's life. The next episode will probably be premiering next Friday, so a week from now. That's assuming that I managed to release this episode on a Friday. I will try. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. My name has been Soulfax, and I will see you next Friday, I guess. Bye bye.